We didn't talk about this today, but we talked about it some yesterday. Remember, first thing we got to do is talk about what the Fugitive Slave Act was, what it did. It solidified all those laws. It was that returned slaves back to the slave owners in the South if they left. The laws were already on the books. It just tightens them up, makes them a little more stringent, okay, and it makes it a criminal act for anyone in the North to harbor fugitive slaves or to hold back information about fugitive slaves if someone comes and asks. So that's what it does. Why does it cause such massive opposition? We talked a ton about this yesterday. The people of the North felt like you were forcing them to choose between their moral beliefs, which is that slavery is abominable and no one should have to live in it, and so I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that doesn't happen if I get the opportunity, and the law. This is something that our heads can't wrap themselves around. In normal circumstances, your morality, the things you think are morally correct, are also the things that are correct in the law, right? You can't kill people. You can't steal from people. You can't go just bludgeon somebody in the middle of the street because you feel like it and you're angry at somebody else. You can't do these things. Morally and ethically, that's wrong, and so you get punished by the law. Here you're flipping it on its head and you're saying morally and ethically, most of the people that are being applied this law believe that morally and ethically they should be helping these slaves. But now I got to choose between my own freedom, if I get caught I get thrown in jail, and helping someone who shouldn't be in a position where they shouldn't be free at all. And so that's why this causes this massive pushback in the North when they do it. Talk about how it's part of the Compromise of 1850, talk about all that kind of stuff, but the real key is going to be that it really forces people in the North to choose between their morality and their freedom, or potential freedom. Okay. Second one.
Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 potentially affected all African Americans. Compare and contrast the harmful effect of the fugitive slaves in Northern African Americans who have always been free. Also compare and contrast the reactions to the actions of the South.
Okay. So, when we talk about this, the last part of it, the reactions North and South, we already talked about the reaction North in the first essay, so you're going to kind of shorten that up and use it here, that's fine. The reaction of the South was, this is great, we're finally going to be able to get our property back that has been stolen from us. We talked about that argument yesterday. So that's going to be that part of it. But the key to a lot of this, so again, you're going to talk about the fugitive slave law, we've already talked about the northern and southern responses, you got the top and bottom of this one done. The key is the middle. What are the effects on fugitive slaves and of slaves who had never ultimately had to worry about being free, okay? The effects on the fugitive slaves were obvious. You could not stop running until you hit Canada. Because with these new laws, if people took the law seriously, it was their duty, it was their legal liability to turn in a fugitive slave. And you never knew who was going to do that. The people who could just ignore it before now had to turn you in. And as long as you were in the United States, you were vulnerable to being sent back and going into slavery. The effects on the free northern African Americans who had always been free, who were never slaves. Because there were African Americans who were born free in the North, and there were a decent number of those. The effects on them are that they feel like they don't need to run. They're free. They were never slaves. But remember, there's no such thing as Social Security cards or fingerprint identification or DNA or any of that crap. So if a slave owner comes up and says, that guy escaped from my plantation 6 months ago, I'm taking him back, whether you were or not, you had to defend yourself. And remember, African Americans can't give testimony in court because they're not citizens. How is that going to happen? You have to have a white person who is close enough to you to vouch for you in court that you've lived here forever at their own risk, because if it's found for whatever reason that that's not correct, if that's what the judge sees, that person could go to jail for vouching for you. So even for free northern, or not free, we'll say free northern slaves, ex-slaves, or people who were always free, they never were in bondage at all. This thing meant that they could end up going back and being slaves in the South when they were never a slave to begin with. It made everybody's future very tenuous at best, if that makes sense. Okay? What else?
In the 1850s, many Americans supported popular sovereignty as a solution to the explosive question of slavery in the Western territories. Why was the solution so popular, and why did it ultimately prove inadequate? In your answer, you should address popular sovereignty's very critics as well as students.
Okay. Biggest thing is explaining what popular sovereignty is, right? This is the right of the state to choose whether they'll be slave or free. So you got to at least talk about that, because you got to get that taken care of off the top. Why is this so popular? Okay, from a ideological standpoint, this is a lot of this. From an ideological standpoint, why is it like, oh yeah, this makes complete sense to the United States? Exactly. We're democratic. We believe in the people's right to choose what happens to them, right? Why is it the federal government's job? This is perfect. I mean, this is as a, America wave the flag, wear your lapel pin as you can get, right? It's democratic. Why didn't we think of this before? Let the states decide what they want. This is the way the forefathers would have wanted it. All of those arguments. So that's the ideological thought process. Politicians loved it. We talked about this yesterday. Politicians loved it because it let them go, I'm out. They got this. That is not my problem. Okay? We talked about that yesterday, so go into that a little bit. Then the people loved it, and whether you were abolitionist or you were pro-slavery, you loved it. And this is strange. You realize you're getting to a point where you're realizing that no matter which way this goes, it's going to be a fight that either side's probably going to win. So if you leave it up to the states in a democratic nation, you feel like your side's going to win. I complain about this all the time with social media. Social media has put this problem on steroids. But I want you to think about this. If you live in Boston, everybody you talk to is either an abolitionist or is neutral. Not many people in Boston are going to be pro-slave, right? All the people in your friend groups, the people you talk to, the people you deal with politically, are all talking about, oh, slavery should be abolished. This is crazy. Why are we doing this? It's immoral. It's unethical. Oh. If you live in Savannah, Georgia, every person you talk to is going to be pro-slavery. Why is it that the state cannot choose? This is a better scenario for everybody. This is ridiculous. What is wrong? So when you come up with popular sovereignty, in my brain, of course I'm going to win. Just listen to everybody around you. Listen to everybody you talk to. Does anybody propose the other side? No. We're in the majority here. I don't care what everybody else says. It's those idiots in the South that don't know what they're talking about, and they just like to put people in bondage and make money. And obviously there's not many of them. We'll beat them. The people in the South. The only people that don't want this are the idiots from Boston and New York City. Let that state choose. You know how they'll choose. We'll win this. Everybody thinks they're going to win it. Okay? So what do you think is going on with our political system now with Facebook and Twitter and all this? The people you're friends with on Facebook, the people who are your connections on Instagram, they all believe the same thing you do. That's why they're your friends. You hear the same crap. It's called the echo chamber. And it makes you think that whatever you think is right. You don't question your own thought process. We just amped it up with social media. But the same thing is going on in 1850. So for the people, this makes total sense. This is what we want to do. Okay? Because we're going to win this. We know it. So, the problems with it. What makes it an issue? Bleeding Kansas. In a perfect world, people from Kansas should choose what happens to Kansas. Great. It's not a perfect world. There's no way to determine who is from Kansas and who isn't, and what you get is people from outside Kansas determining the radical elements come in to determine what happens to Kansas. Kansas doesn't have a say in it at all, right? And now you put all the radical elements together and you end up with people fighting and killing each other. This is totally inadequate. It is never going to work. There's no way to make this function. Okay? So those are the things that you do. What else? The last thing we just did at the beginning of class. So go ahead and read it real quick and we'll summarize it.
Abraham Lincoln believed he had staked out a moderate position on the question of slavery, avoiding the extremes of immediate abolitionism and calling for unlimited protection of slavery. White, then his son, Southern states, determined that his election necessitated the radical acts of secession.
Okay. We talked about this all at the beginning of class, right? He says, yeah, I'm an abolitionist. Those are my personal opinions as President of the United States. My primary goal is to maintain the preservation of the Union. I am never going to do anything because I know as soon as I were to abolish slavery, if that were to happen, the South would secede and the ultimate goal of maintaining the preservation of the Union would be gone. To him, this is as moderate as it gets. Nobody can disagree with this, right? Northerners know he's anti-slavery and he's going to do what he can to make sure that it doesn't spread or expand. Southerners are going to know that he's not going to come after them. Their institution is going to stay intact, at least while he's there. This is perfect. There's a major problem. And the major problem is the Lincoln-Douglas debate. The Lincoln-Douglas debates where he talked about that he would do anything and everything he could to abolish slavery. His answer is very simply, yes, as a senator of Illinois, fighting for the people of Illinois who believe this, that would be what I would do. But as president, it's different. The South said, you're a liar. We can't trust these northern abolitionists. Look at John Brown. He comes down here and tries to get all the slaves to kill us all, right? And let's look at what happened in Kansas with those crazy radicals that went out killing people and doing everything. They will stop at nothing to end slavery. We put him in, it's going to happen. This is the line in the sand. If he gets elected, that's fine. Then you get to the point where not a single southern state gives him an electoral college vote. And now it's, this nation no longer represents us. And so because of that, we can voluntarily leave. And legally, there's no legal precedent that says that we can't. And this is what really Civil War comes down to, is the legality of whether the South can secede or not. Can they leave the Union? The South says yes. Point to anything that says that we can. And the North says, well, there's nothing written, but it's understood. You entered into this Union with the agreement of how elections were to go. You can't just walk away from it. Unless, of course, there's something egregious going on that doesn't follow it. Then you can say we've got this grievance, but that's not what happened. You were in the minority. Just because you were in the minority doesn't mean you can walk away. So this question of legality starts to come in on the back end of it. Can you even do this? And it's decided by shooting each other. Like always. Any questions? All right. So,